Hi, and welcome to Empowered Marketing by Professor Hines. This podcast is devoted to beginning marketers and owners of small businesses. We're here to help you learn social media marketing. Each episode presents important elements in social media marketing that you can use in your campaigns to generate better results, especially more business. Empowered Marketing is exclusively sponsored by A-Cubed Marketing Services in Orange County, California. A-Cubed Marketing Services serves small and mid-sized businesses in the areas of strategic marketing consultation, social media marketing using all forms of social media, campaign creation and management in both paid and owned media, pay-per-click campaigns, search engine optimization, graphic design, and videography. A-Cubed Marketing is owned and managed by me, Professor Joe Hines. My experience includes over 20 years of Fortune 100 corporation marketing management, as well as 10 years of academic work as professor at California State University Fullerton, Concordia University, Biola University, Cal Baptist University, and Fullerton College. You can find out more about A-Cubed Marketing Services. Use the link on the homepage of this podcast or call A-Cubed Marketing at 714-872-0561. In today's episode, number 7, we focus on 3 main subjects. We'll start off with social touchpoints. Whenever a consumer or customer receives communication in any form from a company or brand, we count it as a touchpoint. For instance, when you hear an ad coming across Pandora, count that as a touchpoint. In marketing, we want to make as many connections like this as possible. In the old days, it was about indoctrinating or teaching our consumers or customers the important messages that we thought were critical to the persuasion process. Today, our communication is what we call permission-based, because consumers now have to click on something before we can share our messages with them. They have to open an email or they have to click on a link in order to see a video or a blog. We'll talk about the social diary, which is a look at the typical day of a consumer from the perspective of their engagement with media, whether it's traditional media or the new digital media. And then we'll turn our attention to the 5 basic types of messages people post in social media. These 5 types include vision, validation, vindication, values, and vanity messages. And finally, we'll finish off the episode with a look at personal branding and the importance of managing our own social media, keeping the 7 seconds rule, 7 seconds to form a first impression, in mind. I'm looking forward to sharing this information with you today, so let's get started back in my classroom at Whittier College.
So we can also talk about social touch points. When we talk about a touch point in marketing, what we're really talking about is how many different ways can our brand interact or connect with our consumers, with our targets, okay? Anytime that I've connected the brand to the consumer, that's one touch point. So when we look at social touch points, it's all of the different ways that we can use social media to kind of surround the consumer and continue to build that relationship with them. Everywhere you go, as long as you have an internet-enabled device, and that's all of us all the time these days, right? Social media can be a part of your daily life. The opportunities exist as social media touch points. There's a gal that walks around my neighborhood every morning. And when she walks around, she's looking at YouTube or something like this. And I'm always thinking, she's going to run into something one of these days, you know? And I know she is. So one day I'm watching her do this, and then she walks right into a tree. So just totally clued out to the rest of the world and totally engrossed in what was on her screen here, to the point that she walked into a tree. Touch points. Social footprint. Remember a minute ago I said that we are kind of littering the ground in social media with signs that we were here. Our posts, our pictures, our videos, all our stuff. When we do that, it's called a social footprint. If you go to the beach and you're walking on the wet side of the shore, right, where the water just hits the sand, and you walk, you leave a footprint. Or if you do it in a field of snow, or if you do it in mud or whatever, you can always tell where somebody's been because they left a trail behind them. This is the same way that when we're doing the same thing in social media. So a social footprint is the marks that people leave behind when they're in a social media environment. Now, there's another thing here called a day in the social life. And as you guys begin thinking about later on your campaigns, you're going to be thinking about what are all of the proper social media that we should be using to reach our voters. How do we do it? Well, in order to do that, you have to understand the kinds of places where they are likely to be found. So this would be kind of a diary, right? So, every time we log in, we leave a footprint. The social touch points are enabling data marketers to understand social identity. So here's the example. This is just the day in the life of Anne. Anne is 29. She's a marketing professional. She uses 3 devices every day. She's on Facebook Messenger. Who uses Messenger here? Not very many people. Okay. You guys text more often than that, right? Skype. Anybody Skypes? Okay. Viber are 3 of the most frequently used apps. You guys, anybody use WhatsApp? You've used it. Okay. Well, it's all different examples of social. And what this is showing is, look, Anne wakes up around 6:30, and the first thing that she does is she gets on this light green thing, which is you can't see the legend, her smartphone. Okay? So the light green throughout the day is Anne using her smartphone for various things, texting, phone calls, searches, social media, whatever, but that's the device that she's on. Now the darker green here, that's her tablet, okay? So, her Surface or her iPad or whatever, and then the purple thing here, this is her PC, which is being used pretty much when you think it would be used, like she's at work, right? So obviously she's on her computer. And here 2 to 3, again, she's back from lunch. While she was at lunch, she was on her smartphone, but when she came back, she's back on her other thing now, you see? So we want to, and why do you suppose it's important to know what kinds of devices people are using and when they're on those devices?
How to format the ads so it's formatted for the device. And
yes.
Also time, you want to post things when people are looking at the devices. So I know like Instagram influencers post certain times of the day because people are getting off work and looking at their phone now.
Yes.
Actively looking at their phone.
Yes, exactly right. Example would be if you're doing email marketing. Ideal time is to either get it in their email so it's in there about 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's at the top of the list, or maybe around 11:30 to 12, because these are the times that people are, or at the end of the day. Why? Because those are when we're typically checking out our personal email. You don't want to be somewhere sandwiched with a bunch of email on top of you. Why? Because chances are, if you're not right on top, people are never going to get to your message. Or it'll be a long time maybe before they get to that message. I see. Okay. So this is kind of just saying, we'll kind of walk through it. At 7 a.m., she wakes up, she checks the weather and the messages. At 8 a.m., she is reading the news and she checks the schedule while eating breakfast. At 9:30, she's traveling to work, she chats with her friends and she plays mobile games. 10 o'clock in the morning, she's at work, she reads her email. Long working sessions at 2 to 4, multiple business calls on Skype, or Google Hangouts, or FaceTime, or whatever, but that's the idea. At 5:30, she's on her way home. She Googles some dinner recipes because she's going to stop off at the store before she goes home, because most of us buy groceries on the way home every night now. Did you know that? People don't shop once a week. They kind of just do like a little bit at a time. I don't know why.
Healthier, good produce.
Maybe, sure. Okay, I can see that. At 7 p.m., dinner's in the oven. Oh, dinner's in the oven. I can check the news. Where do you guys get your news these days?
Apple News.
Yeah, right? I mean, I get almost all my news off of the internet, off of my phone these days. At 8:30, she finds a new series on Netflix, and she watches on a tablet while eating dinner. She Instagrams the main character's outfit, and she cross-posts to Facebook. So this person is multitasking while she's watching a movie. She's doing a whole bunch of stuff. At 10 to 11, before going to bed, she chats with her parents on Skype, and she reads the comments on her Instagram post. This Anne is like constantly buried in social media. Do you guys feel like maybe that's kind of how you guys are? It feels like that's how I am these days. I can remember for most of my life, it was never like that. How many of you guys actually sleep next to your phone? How many of you guys kind of use that phone to put yourselves to sleep sometimes? Just, right? How many of you guys wake up in the middle of the night and the first thing you grab is your phone? Holy cow! Right? I mean, could you be possibly any more intimately connected with a gadget than this? It's nutso, right? Like we never shut it off. The inflow of information is constant. Okay. So this social footprint that we were talking about is the mark that a person leaves when they're in social media. So remember last week we touched a little bit on these 4 zones in social media. We talked about a community zone, a publishing zone, an entertainment zone, and this social commerce zone. Does this ring a bell? Okay. So then, for instance, Jen, in social community, she's on her personal page in Facebook. She's in LinkedIn looking at her career and connections there. Maybe she's Snapchatting. In the publishing area, she's got a blog, you know. So the whole world, even old farts like me, have migrated into this thing now, right? As I was saying, as marketers, we are really interested in understanding and knowing as much as we can about the people that we want to market to. And that's because the more you know about your customers, the more you can use to persuade them to buy your stuff, right? So it turns out that that when people are communicating in social media, there's basically 5 basic messages that they're sharing. They go by these terms: vision, validation, vindication, vulnerability, and vanity. Yeah?
Sorry, can you explain vindication?
I'm going to explain all of them to you. So with vision, the question is, did I just learn something here? Did I just expand my horizons, right? So I read different articles on the, social media. People often share things, blogs or articles that they've read on their pages. Do you guys ever do that?
Like grandparents do.
Okay, well, I do this a lot lately. Now, so did I learn something? And so what you're doing is you're communicating, hey, this is some important information that I recently picked up that I want to share with you. That's vision. Okay? The next one is validation. Am I accepted by this group? Well, how do we show that, how do we show each other that we're seeing your content, that we like what you're posting, whatever? What do? We like it, we put a heart emoji on it, we do a laugh emoji, right? Whatever, but they're all indications that you're a part of us and we're a part of you, right? We're all sharing and communicating together. That's validation. Now, to go to your question about vindication, what you're saying here is, I'm right. Like, I told you it was going to go down bad, and it did. I'm right. Or you could take the other tack and go, look, I told you guys at the beginning of the season that the Patriots were going to win again, and duh, right? Okay. So now vulnerability is I'm approachable. So how do you do vulnerability in social media? Have you guys ever tried to communicate I'm approachable? How would you do that? Go ahead.
Open up about something you're struggling with in life.
Yeah.
And thousands of people relate to it.
Yeah, and let people comment back and start those conversations. And it gets dangerous because all of a sudden it goes from I'm approachable to trolling really quickly, right? You know what trolling is, you guys? When you're basically looking for a fight on social media.
Fighting to fight.
Yeah, and I found myself early in 2017 getting into arguments with people about politics, right? And I figured out, you know what? I can't convince people to think any other way. And I've used all kinds of effort and arguments to do this, but this is who they are and they're not going to change, so rather than get in a pissing match with somebody, I'm not going to do that anymore, you know? Okay. Now, vanity is all about, I'm awesome, right? So when do we show vanity? How do we show vanity? Selfies, right?
Events in your life.
Stuff we're doing.
Yeah. You're like, hey, this is me and the family at the river.
Tesla, whatever.
Yeah, me and my new Tesla, me and my new gull-wing Mercedes, whatever it is, I'm the dude. Okay. Now this is kind of some key information here. This is a point that I think everybody needs to lock into, not just for the class, but for the perspective of you thinking about your future careers, no matter what you do, okay? Anything that you put out there is permanent. When it goes on the internet, it's not coming down. And even though you think that your page is private or it's hidden or something, it isn't. And they're making evaluations about, do we want to hire this person or not, based on, well, what do they look like when they're not at work? Who is this person really? Okay? So, you are in control of your digital footprint. Nobody else. You're in control of it. Your digital footprint can generate professional development opportunities. That's a huge deal, yeah? Your digital footprint can build a positive image of who you are, or it can do just the opposite, right? If you're the dork at the party with the lampshade on your head, falling over drunk, you're not making yourself look very professional at all, right? Your digital footprint can help create useful networks. How many of you guys have LinkedIn pages? How many of you guys actually actively use them? A couple of you. Okay, good. This is the time in your lives right now, you guys, when you should be working as hard as you can to create a real, actual personal network. Because when you get out to go look for a job in a couple of years, if you don't have that, it's going to be hard to get work. Let me tell you a secret. Only about 10% of all jobs are filled by using places like Indeed or Monster or Craigslist or whatever. Over 80% of all of the jobs that get filled through your network. It makes sense, right? So if you have a network, you're going to much more easily find a job. But if you don't, if you haven't been investing into, curating this for yourselves, it's going to be a hard row to hoe, especially these days, okay? So pay attention to that. So how do we do that, right? Well, we can use, different forms of social media. We can share, and we can, when you look at stuff, share and question evidence and research. Trump is right about one thing. There is a lot of fake news. However, there's a lot of fake news on both sides, isn't there? And a lot of people still make the mistake of, well, if it was published, it has to be true. Really? I wouldn't believe that, okay? We can make ourselves look more professional when we create intelligent content and share it far and wide. So I'll give you an idea of that. In the last few weeks, I've started vlogging, and so far I've got 3 that I've published and put out there, and I put them all on my LinkedIn page. I've got over 200 views combined over just 3 videos. I don't know who these people are, but there's a lot of people that are finding my stuff and watching it and liking it, and that's likely to do me some favors professionally later down the road. Ultimately, somebody who needs my services is going to find that and think, this guy's pretty sharp, and look how cool this looks, and look what he has to say, and this is useful. So when you do that for yourselves, and I'm only talking about me because it's an example, okay? So the idea here is think about your social media personally as always trying to put yourself in the best light possible, yeah? We only have one opportunity to make a first impression. You want that first impression to be as solid as you can. Because if it's not, it's much more difficult to win somebody over than it was the first time. Because now you have to undo all the negative that they have in their head that unfortunately they didn't have until you yourself put it there. Right? Okay. Well, I'm not going to have you guys actually do this assignment, but I want to describe this assignment to you because it might be something for you for later that you could do to take a look at what does my personal social media footprint look like out there. So you could take a look at all of your posts across all of the different social media platforms that you use and then start evaluating what you've posted and say, is there questionable language? Are there racial slurs? Am I trolling or bullying somebody? The next category could be, am I highlighting positive activities, hobbies, and volunteer work that maybe I've done? There's a big difference in my mind, big difference in opinion between this guy and this guy, right? Do you quote particular songs or lyrics or whatever? Are you talking about teen angst and anti-authority stuff? Well, this makes you look like a rebel without a clue, right? You don't want to be there either. You know, are you positive and happy? Do you talk about... So the idea is, what is the tone and what is the general impression that you're creating about you based on the stuff that you're putting out there? And what you want to do is you want to look at it across all of the pages and then count how many posts might have had questionable language. How many posts might have been highlighting positive activities, and that sort of thing. And take a look at it and go, well, on the whole, am I casting a positive look or am I casting a negative look at myself? It's a great way to take a third-party objective look at how the rest of the world sees you. There's a guy that's done a ton of work and writing in this area. It's an area called personal branding. Are you familiar with that concept of personal branding? Okay. A brand is the overall opinion or impression that a company and a product have put in your head over time. Well, if it's possible for a company or a product to brand, then people are still forming opinions based on what they observe in us. And remember, like I said a little while ago, 80% of what we communicate is nonverbal. Okay? So I'm going to show you these two videos. The guy's name is Tom Peters. He's a really, really well-known management consultant, and lately he's done a lot of work in these areas, okay? First impressions and storytelling.
Roger Ailes was an incredibly successful spin doctor, frontman, PR guy, whatever you want to talk about it, for President Ronald Reagan. He went off to create Fox News or become its first president or something like that. And he wrote a book, and the book was kind of about how to get things done in your life professionally. And there are a couple things that really popped out at me. One of them that hit me right between the eyes, and you've heard this, including from your mother when you were 7 years old, but he talks about first impressions. But he does something, and he takes first impressions and he quantifies it. And what he says is, listen precisely here. What he says is, you have 7 seconds to make your first impression. And when I started thinking about it and saying, it's an exaggeration, I think that there's probably an awful lot of truth in that. So it's not a matter of your brilliant comeback or your brilliant whatever your brilliant statement, your brilliant wit. It's what do you project? And the term that he uses is amp up your attitude. You do, in the first 7 seconds, give off energy, enthusiasm, engagement, whatever it happens to be. So I suspect 100% of us believe in the first impressions thing, and I suspect 98% of us believe in the incredible power of first impressions. But try thinking about it in terms of 7 seconds, and thinking about as much as it may bug you, particularly if you're an engineer or somebody like that, think about what that facial expression says about you. Are you engaged? Are you energetic? You know, there are two kinds of people in the world, energetic and not so energetic. The good news is, at least within some limits, you can work on it. 7 seconds, life or death, great first impression, awful first impression.
And, you know, with social media, we can reach so many people so quickly that, you know, and people that we're not even aware that we're reaching a lot of the time, right? I mean, your pages are, frankly, if they're available to the world, the entire world theoretically can see it. So are you creating in that 7 seconds a really positive opinion? Or maybe something that's not as good as what you could be creating, yeah? The other one is called telling stories, which is perfect, again, for social media.
When in doubt, if you do what I do, call on Gandhi. One of my favorite Gandhi quotes is, "My life is my message." The number one thing that a leader, and the leader can be a 26-year-old who doesn't have a leadership job, because you're attracting followers as much at 23 or 24, 25 or 26 in a McDonald's or in the White House as you are at 36 or 46 or 56. And the way you live, every little vibe that you give off is critically important. Howard Gardner, the great Harvard leadership expert, said one's life, one's story is fundamentally the single most effective tool that any leader at any level has. And so I want to say my life is my message and my story is my message. If you notice, particularly when you look at presidents, kings, and prime ministers, their speeches tend to be peppered with 10-second stories, 15-second stories. Their speeches are almost never, except below the surface, analytic. They are stories stitched together that end up giving off some vibes. Now, you're not president or prime minister, and 25 or 30 years ago, I lived in the mecca of analytic behavior, McKinsey and Company. But when we would make a presentation to the chief executive officer of a part of GE in an engineering business, let alone a retailer, we would also include quotes from people that we had talked to. And those quotes were essentially micro stories. So pay attention to storytelling. Maybe you ought to go in your off time and watch one of the great storytellers. But people who make a difference have good stories, put good stories together. Gandhi, my life is my message.
This podcast, Empowered Marketing by Professor Hines, is exclusively sponsored by A-Cubed Marketing Services in Orange County, California. In business since 2013, A-Cubed Marketing offers a complete suite of internet marketing services, including strategic marketing consultation, social media marketing using all forms of social media, campaign creation and management in both paid and owned media, pay-per-click campaigns, search engine optimization, graphic design, and videography. A-Cubed Marketing is owned and managed by Professor Joe Hines. His experience includes over 20 years of Fortune 100 corporate marketing management, as well as 10 years of academic work as professor at California State University Fullerton, Concordia, Biola, Cal Baptist University, and Fullerton College. Find out more about A-Cubed Marketing Services. Use the link on the homepage of this podcast or call A-Cubed Marketing at 714-872-0561.